We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Infinite Gary. Infinite Gary, since Gary is looking for a center speaker to use in his kitchen setup, if I remember correctly, he's going to try all of them. And his kitchen has a lot of hard reflective surfaces with no plans for any acoustic treatment. And frankly, usually, whenever we do stuff like this, we're like, oh, well, you can probably find... It's a kitchen, dude. You don't put acoustic treatment in a kitchen. Do we think it would be best to look for speakers with narrow dispersion? It certainly couldn't hurt. It would help, but I don't know that it's going to help all that. What is he? This is really for intelligibility, right? For his TV?
Yeah, because he's primarily, mostly he says he's watching sports when he's in there, which makes sense.
Well, I don't know that you really, I'll be honest with you, Gary, I don't know that you want super narrow dispersion because it's going to make it very directional. And
it's also kind of awkward placement that he's got. I mean, the thing is basically right behind his TV, behind his table. It's right under his TV and right behind his table. So the sound coming directly out of the center is almost physically, it's not blocked, but it's got an obstruction like right in front of it.
I appreciate that Gary wants to get good sound out of this thing, but I do appreciate that. I don't know that spending a lot of money on a center channel to get, intelligibility here is going to give you a huge boost in overall sound quality just based on the location, what's going on around it, and the placement. So I don't know that I would worry so much about narrow dispersion. I think that you should be just looking for a speaker that really doesn't roll off the... Well, maybe does roll off the highs.
Well,
I don't know. You're gonna have to test it in that room, man. It's kind of a head scratcher.
I mean, just in general, there's quite a debate about that because there are the people who are big proponents of when you have a room where you're not able to control the reflections, lots of hard reflective surfaces. There are the people who always recommend going for a narrow dispersion speaker. And then, if you ask Floyd Toole, he's going to tell you, no, you want a speaker that is as wide, even dispersion, regardless of the situation, because when your brain puts together all the reflections, it's when the reflections are markedly different from the direct sound that our brain goes, something is weird here. Whereas if the reflections coming in, even if there's a delay, if those reflections match the frequency response of the direct sound, your brain does a better job of sort of filtering all that and putting it together. There's quite a debate on that. In my experience, if you have the one seat from which you never move, then the narrow dispersion works really well. Floyd Toole is mostly, in all of his experiments, he's dealing with a group of people and trying to get what works best for a group, not just a single individual never moving seat. So I tend to feel that both sides make sense. If you have the one seat that never moves, this is like, why electrostatic speakers, right? If you're in that perfect seat, it sounds awesome. If you're anywhere else, it doesn't. So I think that makes sense across the board.
Yeah. I agree, and I think that the real question comes down to, Gary, how are you going to use this thing? If you're going to be moving around the kitchen, then you don't want narrow dispersion. If you're just sitting there turning it on and eating your breakfast and then turning it off, or your dinner or whatever it is that you're doing, and then you're turning it off, and you're never really spending much time doing anything other than that, then Yeah,
because it is all kind of about, it's always about the ratio of direct to reflected sound. So
really, you know what I really think he needs? I'll be honest with you, he's not going to like this, but I think a Bluetooth portable speaker that's battery powered that he could just carry around with him.
Previously, he was using one of those B&W Panorama sound bars, which he actually really, really liked, but he's trying to upgrade from that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, I'm suggesting it's on the upgrade. All right. So how do we know if a speaker has narrow or wide dispersion? It's a specific type of tweeter or woofer design that indicates narrow versus wide dispersion. There are some tweeter designs, and like electrostatic panels, of course, have narrow dispersion. Horn-loaded tweeters tend to be narrower dispersion than non-horn-loaded tweeters, regardless of the type that's inside there. But generally speaking, I mean, a lot of times if you see a waveguide or something like that, that could tell you that they're doing something, or it might not. It all kind of depends. Like the waveguide that's on the Perion audio speakers and that tangerine waveguide that's on the KEF speakers is not to make their dispersion more narrow. It's to do a lot of other things with it.
Yeah, so, I mean, the job of a waveguide should be to make the dispersion of the tweeter as similar as possible to the dispersion of the mid-range driver. That's the whole idea of a waveguide. So, yeah, I mean, really the thing to look at is the thing that's making the sound kind of big? Because as soon as the surface that is producing the sound, the thing that's actually in contact with the air and vibrating the air, as soon as that is more than a quarter wavelength, right? So if you're dealing with something that's a 2-inch wavelength, as soon as you have something that's half an inch producing that sound, it's going to start to make that sound more directional. Once the thing producing the sound is actually as large or larger than the wavelength it's producing, it becomes very much like a beam. So that's why an electrostatic panel, which is, very wide and very tall, the high frequencies coming out of that are coming out like a beam. If they're coming out as anything, it's like a vertical line. So you move to the left or right even a little bit, and you're out of that direct wave now, because it's coming out very much like a beam. So with a ribbon tweeter that's tall but narrow, that's why you can get wide horizontal dispersion from a ribbon, but not so much vertical dispersion, because vertically it's tall, but it's narrow horizontally. So those are the types of things we look for. If you have just a really large woofer, you look at some of them, it's a single tweeter paired with a 15-inch woofer, and that's it, two-way that way. That's going to be a directional speaker, because that 15-inch woofer is having to play the mid-range, and it is wide enough that it's, a quarter wavelength of some of the frequencies it's producing. It's going to start to become more directional. So mostly it's about the size of the drivers, just the physical dimensions.
Yeah.
Or horns.
So his next center speaker audition will be the RBH SV661CR, which is part of their signature reference series, and uses RBH's new AMT, which is a folded ribbon tweeter. Mm-hmm. He was told it plays flat up to 40 kilohertz. Is this important? Is it unusual or unique to the AMT's tweeter? Everything plays up to 40 kilohertz. Everything does. It all does, dude. Just whether or not you can hear it, or whether or not it's loud enough for anything to hear.
The vast majority is pretty darn quiet up there, but to keep this in frame of reference, even though that's a big number, that's only 1 octave above 20 kilohertz.
Yeah. You double the number, you're going up 1 octave. So that being said, it's immaterial because you can't hear it at all, ever, in any situation, regardless. Okay. I
mean, there are the people playing their high-resolution 96K or 192K files who will tell you they think it's important, but everything about human physiology says...
And that's why they put that number on there, because they're like, it can play this sound that you cannot hear. And somebody's going, ooh, well, 40 is bigger than 20 kilohertz, so this must be better. It's not. It's immaterial. It's like saying... I mean, it's like saying so many things that people say about stuff.
It's not unique to folded ribbon tweeter. There are plenty of other tweeters that can play that high, or they can, throw a super tweeter on there if they really want to go up there. So
go 100 kilohertz, or 120, or 200, or 5 million. Who cares? Gary, this whole like things you can hear versus things you can't hear. I liken it to remote controls. Okay? A remote control has an IR beam on there. You cannot see it. You can't see it.
True.
You can't see it, right? But if you put on like some infrared goggles every time your Harmony remote hub went off to send out stuff, you would be completely blinded. It is just like this. It's just showering the room with infrared light, right? You can't see it. It doesn't affect you. That's the same thing that 40 kilohertz does. You can't hear it. It doesn't affect you. It could be playing at 1 billion decibels. You'd be like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe 1 billion decibels would do something, but I don't think so. Maybe it'd be like a laser. I don't know.
Meanwhile, dolphins and bats would be going, aye, aye.
Yes. The dolphins would not like you. Don't do that to the dolphins, Gary.
That's right.
What did they ever do to you? Though they always look a little shifty to me. All right, anyways. We've talked about Owens Corning, Roxol, and EcoCore installation using acoustic panels. We've said they all perform about the same. Do we personally have any preference? I do. I prefer the cheapest one that I can find.
How did I know?
I will take the one that's on sale. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same camp. I don't know. The Roxol's kind of nice to work with. I mean, it's just in terms
That's what I've
of
used in
the
the past.
feel
I've
in
used
your
Rox.
hand.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. I if I had to pick one, I'd go for the Roxel. That'd be mine. There, I'll make a pick. But
that's the one I have used, and it was nice to work with.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
but if one of the other two were cheaper when I was buying, I'd get the cheaper one because the performance is the same.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.